morning, everybody. Welcome to today's 1 million by 1 million strategy roundtable for entrepreneurs. 1M1M, as you know, is the first and only global virtual accelerator for startups in the world. Our mission is to help 1 million entrepreneurs reach $1 million and beyond in annual revenue. And in support of that mission, we do these roundtables week after week after week, and we have entrepreneurs coming from all over the world. This is the 390th session. And we started doing these in the fall of 2008, and that is way before the 1 million by 1 million program was launched. That was in 2010, end of 2010. So by now, we have a lot of mileage on this car here. So today we're going to the recording is going to be available on our YouTube channel, 1M1M Roundtables, and all recordings of prior sessions are available there. It's a very interesting learning material. So if you have commute or if you have, either metro commute or driving commute or whatever, and you want things to listen to, these are great episodes to listen to. You can, by the way, if you are live tweeting the show today, use hashtag 1M1M, and you can join us on Twitter at 1M1M and at Romana. These are both channels through which we publish a lot of very interesting content, educational content, inspirational content, trends, role model case studies, and so forth. So very broad amount of material that you can, learning material that you can access. Now, this is a roundtable. We want you to all participate. So do make a note of that. I will put up the call-in instructions a bit later when we are ready for call-in. But the public chat on your screen is wide open throughout the program. So please participate, ask questions, weigh in with your thoughts in the public chat. Make sure you set your chat to send to all participants. We're going to start today's conversation with Yanai Oron, General Partner of Vertex Ventures. Yanai, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you. Welcome from Tel Aviv.
Tell us a bit about Vertex. Tell us about yourself. Let's introduce you to our audience, and also let's get to know you.
Sure. So as for me, I started as I lived my whole life pretty much in Israel. I grew up in Israel. I was an electrical engineer and worked for Intel for a couple of years, working here in their Israeli R&D center, which is pretty big. And then when I wanted to switch to the business world, I wanted to live in New York, so I went to study at NYU at Stern, and I did my MBA there, after which I worked for a mid-stage startup doing business development and then management roles. And during the time, I lived in New York for about 7 years. And around 2010, I decided to go back to Israel, be back with my friends and family. And this is also when I started to go into venture. So I started as a small angel investor. These were, in hindsight, very good years to be an angel investor. It was still, not a lot of people wanted to invest, but these were probably the best startups were founded then, so I had quite a nice fortune to invest in some interesting startups. And about 3-4 years later, I joined Vertex as a partner. Vertex is a 20-year-old fund based in Israel, and we are an early-stage fund managing around $150 million US each cycle, investing in early stage, which is a general word for anywhere between large seeds up to small B rounds. The unique thing about Vertex is, except the fact that we are a standalone fund in Israel, Vertex itself is a network of funds, Vertex Israel being one of them, but also there's 4 others in major hubs of innovation throughout the world. So there's one in Silicon Valley, one in China, one in Singapore that invests in Southeast Asia and India as well. Which means that we have a presence in most places of innovation throughout the world, or similarly similar in size funds, each investing in its own locale, specializing in what the local scene has to offer.
And when you say you like to invest in seed can you define what is a reasonable set of proof points or validation that you're looking for before you're willing to put in money in a company?
Sure. So actually, it's important to say that we're pretty flexible and we don't do only seed. So our sweet spot is a $150 million fund. I guess in the US or in China, that would be a seed fund. For us in Israel, because the market is actually smaller, that's a typical A round company. Mm-hmm. Even though today the boundaries are getting more less strenuous. So our sweet spot is probably A rounds, okay? But we more and more see ourselves doing some going upstream and doing earlier rounds. On one hand, simply to get a significant percentage at the company before it gets very expensive, but also because I think today what we're seeing in Israel, and it's probably similar to some other place in the world, but we would not do a small seed. So if a company raises $500,000 or $1 million, if it's a B2C, if it's an internet, something that you can get a proof of concept fairly easy and get some traction, that's probably not where we are best at. That we would leave that to angels or actual seed funds, which in Israel usually are 30 to 70 million US. We would participate in seed, and that can be just an idea if we really know the founder or believe that they are very strong founders. We are very comfortable investing in the presentation phase. So just an idea, but a market that we're really confident on, but also where there's deep technology to be developed. So it's not something you can develop in 3 to 6 months and get an MVP out. It's usually something that takes a year or so, depending on what kind of technology. And then we would make sure that the company has at least 2 to 3 million, and sometimes we also participate in seeds of 6 to 9 million. Enough money for the company to, one, develop the product, and number two, get some initial traction so they're ready for the next round. And in which case, we usually would sometimes partner with other funds or angels.
So it's interesting because actually your comment that in the US your fund would be called a seed fund is not correct. I think in the US also, 150 million fund is still a Series A fund. Seed Series A fund, but it's a fund that is structured to be able to make smaller Series A's, because a lot of the traditional venture funds in the US right now are so large. Their Series A will need to be a 5 million to 10 million Series A, and that's, to get there, you really have to, that's, in the traditional terms, that's a Series B or Series C company.
Right. Yeah.
As a result, there is a lot of smaller funds that have come into the market who are willing to do the smaller Series A, the 1 million, 2 million, 3 million Series A's, and that's more where you are positioned, it seems.
Well, actually, so I think just to comment on that, and once again, I think the definitions get so different also between geographies, but also, so we actually see a Series A as something that is 5 to 7 million, but we've gone to see some Series A that are 12 to 20 million, right? And more often we see seeds of this nature. So it's a little bit confusing. So it's hard to really say what's seed and not. And it's not about really the money. It's about which, what's your target? What area are you focused on? Are you getting to? Can you do something within 3 to 6 months, or do you need to develop something that will take you a year?
Yeah. Well, and the other corollary of that conversation, audience, is that it's very difficult as a first-time entrepreneur to get people to write big checks. So if people are looking for entrepreneurs they know, people are looking for entrepreneurs who have done it before. If you're a serial entrepreneur with track record, you may be able to get money to build something from investors, but if you're a first-time entrepreneur, that's a very long shot. So just be aware of that as you plan your funding. So Yanai, let's talk about market segments. Where do you like to invest? What markets are of interest? B2B, B2C, both? What parts of those? Let's deep dive a little bit into the markets.
Sure. So we're generally a B2B play. And I would say our investments are about you can put them in two major buckets. The first bucket is can be categorized as enterprise software, and within that we include all the classic enterprise software, so marketing technology, sales technology, infrastructure. Israel has some very interesting infrastructure companies to come out of it, storage,
security,
cloud infrastructure, and cyber obviously is a big one, and that's also under enterprise software, and that'd be probably half of our investment. And really, that if you look at Israel, it's kind of what's the bread and butter in Israel is those teams. Main reason for that is because we have anywhere between 200 to 300 multinational companies who set up an R&D facility here. So a lot of Israelis who've gone through either MBAs or worked through these companies, they understand the culture and they understand kind of what it takes to create the next generation of whether it's storage, cyber, or marketing technology. Obviously, cyber, we also have a unique set of skills because our army creates a lot of technologies which can later be used. So that's the enterprise software. But I think more and more the other half of the investments we make are kind of emerging sectors, which in the past were always kind of a one-off, but today we see different areas that have become really interesting for startups. And those would be, I mean, some are already kind of at their biggest hype cycles, like automotive, to some extent insurance technologies. And we've been very active with those in the past, and those have paid very well for us as well. And now we're kind of looking for the next stage, and including agriculture technologies, retail technologies. We're starting to look at construction technologies, and the main area and the main characteristics around those investments is companies that can bring very deep technology, a lot of machine vision, a lot of big data, a lot of analytics. In the past, it used to be scary that it would be very hard to work with the large corporations in these areas. I think we've seen over the last mainly 3-4 years that the automotive company, the insurance company, the retail companies are more than willing to work with these early startups. Doesn't matter how early. Sometimes the earlier the better. Okay, they are to some extent concerned about maybe Amazon or some similar or high-end companies kind of reaching out and disrupting them. And we see two types of companies. One, companies that actually try to disrupt the incumbents, but the second ones, which actually we see more of, and it's the easiest to do, maybe not the largest outcomes, are ones that help them create automation, help them improve their processes to be able to kind of progress to the next era of customer experience and fighting these new incumbents.
And what are some of the highlights of your portfolio?
Okay, so previous interesting companies that we had the fortune to invest in were companies called CyberArk. It's a cybersecurity company traded in the NASDAQ today with valuation of around 1.7 billion, helping companies secure their privileged information, which is usually what hackers are looking after. Another interesting company that we invested in early stages of is a company called SolarEdge, which is a company that creates technology for solar panels, also trading with over $2 billion in the NASDAQ. A third company that we had the fortune to invest, which was a very interesting ride, is Wave. Even though we don't do a lot of B2C, that was a very unique story that we thought could end very well, and it actually did. If you look at our current portfolio, this year we had a very interesting exit with a company that did cybersecurity for automotive. It's a company called Argus, which we funded only 3 years ago and was sold for around $400 million to a European company. This is an interesting story because 3 years ago we were not sure even amongst ourselves that cybersecurity for automotive is a real need. But it quickly, as autonomous vehicles became a real thing or just approaching to be a real thing, the need kind of presented itself, and this was an amazing ride. It was shorter than we thought, but we really like the company, and we're actually seeing a lot of other companies because the need is really big.
Interesting. Now, if you look at the 2017, let's say, year, 12 years of 2017, a couple of months of 2018, what trends do you see in your deal flow?
Right. So, and this may be a little bit, well, probably not unique to Israel. It's just that we see so many deep technology driven companies. Okay.
Yes.
So we see young entrepreneurs that don't necessarily have a lot of business experience, but come in from very technology-driven experience, and they kind of say they're able to now look at, okay, what's interesting in the world, what are interesting markets to look into. They can spend 2 to 3 to 4 months exploring, very deep exploration of the field, and come up with some crazy ideas. And when we see them the first time, it's pretty crazy. When we see them a month or two after, we're already competing after the deal with maybe 2 or 3 other venture funds. So the cycles for the crazy ideas have become very quick. And we already, after investing in some of those companies and seeing what happens a year or two after, we're already seeing how quickly the wild ideas are becoming reality, not only because the technology allows them, which is obviously a big thing, because vision, deep learning and vision-based technologies are enabling stuff that we could not have imagined 5 years ago, but also because of the willingness of, as I mentioned, the large corporates to work with them, which is pretty amazing. So companies today, they can create the technology, which is pretty difficult, that we can speed it up and can be within a pilot within 2 months of, sometimes they still haven't formed the company and they're already starting a pilot with a major corporation. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And that would probably be the one major trend we're seeing.
And would that be in any particular sector, any particular technology area, or across the board in deep tech?
Right. Yeah. So if I look at the last 3 years, we've invested in 3 automotive and mobility-related companies, and we've seen that progress. The large car companies, from being very hard to work with, thinking with 7-8 year cycles, have narrowed the cycle, are very quick to work with companies, are very eager to fund, and sometimes acquire companies. So that company, that is kind of the blueprint of what we're now seeing beginning to see in insurance technology, even though that sometimes takes some time, depending on, are you doing marketing stuff or are you trying to actually change actuary numbers. Retail has become exactly that. There's some very interesting programs in Israel, which I'm sure we can find similar ones in the other places, of large corporates creating commercialization programs. So not accelerators, but commercial. So they're not, so they would sometimes look for early stage companies, but sometimes late stage companies. Microsoft is a big one, the Microsoft Accelerator, which they've now changed to the scale, I'm not sure the exact name, the Scalerator. They're looking for companies who already have products, but are very quickly willing to work with them and bring them very deep within the organization. Also teaching them, especially teaching them who in the organization are the right people to speak to, which is sometimes the hardest thing for
very hard. And a company like Microsoft is extremely hard.
Not as much today, really. They've really changed. I mean, definitely with Satya, but also kind of, and I think the Accelerator, the big contribution to this. Okay, we saw it kind of firsthand. We know some of the folks who are running this program. They completely changed their view on how to work with startups. About not we're helping the startups, but we want to learn from startups kind of where is this thing going. And if they adopt our products, then it's going to be pretty easy for us to then sell it to the other ones as well. But to go back to what I started with, so retail has become extremely amenable to working with new companies. Retail companies, which as far as 5-6 years ago, we would not touch a retail-based company because we would say you would run out of money before you get your initial pilot. And that's completely changed, 180 degrees. So that's one. Construction is beginning. We're still kind of trying to figure out whether it's working, but these are all in the emerging sectors. I'm trying to think within the enterprise software market, the major trend there, if I look at 2017, is that's actually a harder one because what we see is bigger companies today, the Amazon and Facebook, those are becoming harder to compete with. We're seeing the kind of speed that we are used to from startups with these large corporations. So we're not as likely to fund a small company doing a developer tool, for Amazon serverless. I mean, there's plenty of other people doing it, we're not as happy to do that because it's pretty scary to see what these big companies are able to spin out in very quick turnaround time.
Mm. Now, are you looking for billion-dollar TAMs only? Is that your sweet spot? Or are you also looking for companies that are working in more niche areas, perhaps with smaller TAMs, but with deep technology that can really be the market leader, maybe own 60–70% of a market with a smaller TAM?
Right. So our DNA is the billion-dollar TAM, and it's very hard for us to diverse from that. In some cases, we try to think whether do we really understand the TAM? Is it even possible to assume that, or this is such a new market that it can be easily developed into that? And we are okay with a $200–300 million outcome if it ends up being a smaller market than we thought. I can give you one example. This is fairly recent, so it's maybe a biased example. So we invested in a company called Cryon. It is a company that does RPA, which is robotic process automation. This is, many people haven't heard about it, even though it's kind of a big deal now with enterprise. The idea is that enterprise, they want to cut costs, and they want to do it by automation, okay? And they used to do it with very long and costly business process management with large vendors like IBM, Software AG, and SAP. These will be very long and very hard to work with. And a lot of times the CFO says, yeah, I'm going to cut costs, but it will take me 5 years, so I'm not going to see ROI within the next 3 years. So what RPA does is it says, let's look at all the manual tasks that each employee does. If you think about maybe an insurance company, think about someone taking the claim, copying it to another ERP system, and then running a few emails. Most of that task, most 80% of that employee does is manual tasks that can be done with software. And the idea is that it's hard to integrate to these legacy software system, and it's hard to replace them. So what RPA does, it mimics the worker, even sometimes being on the same machine, through the GUI layer. So it actually understands the GUI, and it does it. And what you can achieve is with little integration, you can get, you can increase the capacity and reduce errors, okay? And then if this is a process that is customer facing, you can actually improve customer experience as well. And you got all of that with half the cost, half the time. This was, until 2 years ago, this was seen as kind of like a niche product. This is not real automation. It's maybe a pass-through or a transient technology. But what we're seeing is because enterprise is so complex to really change, this can take a long time. And having a real solution that can automate stuff is something to stay. And this, we've seen the market grow very fast, but still many of our counterparts believe that this is a small, it was at the time, this was a year ago, estimated this is a $200–300 million TAM, okay? But what we're seeing, this is a 40–50% growing, but also we're thinking this takes a big part of the, $7–8 billion market of BPM, okay? So we saw it's growing very fast. We didn't know exactly. And we're already, 8 months in seeing that it's taken a big portion of it. So that's one way of saying, we really don't understand. A lot of people don't. Some analysts actually said that, some didn't. So we're willing to take that risk. If the company was growing very, 100% year over year, it's stuff that is very to see, but I know that a lot of other VCs have kind of looked and not invested in it because of TAM, simply.
Yeah. Right, so right, and that's exactly where my question comes from, is that, we are in 2018. There's a lot of stuff that has already been built in all different areas of technology. So right now, there are not as many billion-dollar opportunities, but there are many opportunities that are in that 200–300 million TAM kind of range. And in a way, there are ways to make money off these opportunities. You build it up to a point and you then, flip it maybe a little bit earlier than you would perhaps on the other side. You can do 3x, 5x on these deals. So my question comes from exactly that observation that, and some of the funds that we're talking to are, kind of making that call is that, okay, we can do smaller TAM deals. We don't have to only chase unicorns. Because part of the issue also is that there are 700 seed funds, micro VCs and seed funds here right now in the industry. If everybody's chasing unicorns, everybody's chasing billion-dollar market opportunities, there's just not enough of those. So you have to find investment pieces to play.
No, but once again, this is very hard for me to say, and many people will not come out and say this loudly, but once again, so when we look at companies, I'm okay with that being kind of the, if 200-300 million, is the kind of safe bet. Once again, if the company succeeds, and obviously the percentage, but obviously I still need to return around $450 million to my investors. If I look at a company and I think I can get 20-30 million out of it, best case, it's a hard thing for me to adjust.
Of course, your fund size determines those. So there are. And audience, I know you are probably getting a little bit confused because this discussion is quite sophisticated from the point of view of how venture capital works. For a company to be interested in a 20-30 million exit for a VC firm, they need to be a very small VC firm. But the point is, but there are a lot of those funds in the market right now. There are a lot of $15 to $30 million funds out there who are structurally equipped to be able to do those kinds of deals. $150 million fund like Vertex is not in that category. So that's at the same time, Yanai, you can do stuff that an NEA cannot do because they're a billion-plus fund. So there are each of these structural points need to be taken into account, entrepreneurs, as you are thinking through your investment raising strategy, the fundraising strategy. Okay, so what are your other points that we haven't covered in this discussion today that you would like to communicate to our community of entrepreneurs who may be interested in working with you, Yanai?
Sure. So I think one of the issues that we've seen entrepreneurs grapple with sometimes is the kind of the funding strategy. I cannot stress enough that funding strategy is critical. You can get the right product, but you can get the right people, but if you kind of miss your mark, or even if you did exactly what you thought, you still might come and realize that you haven't raised enough to get you to the next round. And the absurd is, even though there's so much money looking for companies right now, as you said, each fund kind of looks at some things and is going, is looking for certain things. So if you raise money but not enough to get to the A, that's a shame, okay? Now, there's always solutions. You can always go to kind of second tier. There's other funds out there. We also did sometimes, we could do a post-seed or a pre-A if we really like the team, but it's not the natural fit. We kind of have these buckets that we really like, and it's a big part of the momentum. So I think a big part of what we want to do with entrepreneurs, if it's first times, as I mentioned, we do that. We kind of try to really plan out what's the funding strategy. If you actually still miss it, okay, or it just wasn't, or sometimes that's not the case. You want to raise $2.5 million as a seed, but you can only get to 1.5. That's also okay. In that case, what I would recommend is looking for companies that are instead of going after a big party round, once again, if it's a possibility, going after maybe one or two major investors, in which case they can work with you and they kind of have the responsibility with you to carry you through, that crunch, okay? So they can do a follow-on. They can bring in some additional investors that count on them, okay? That's very critical, but because sometimes what we see is, as an A-round company, sometimes we see companies that did 2 to 3 seeds, not very good terms. They carry, they gave out so many percentages. They already have some big convertibles on their balance sheet, which makes the A-round very tough. So instead of doing a 5 to 7 with a 20 post, it can be 10 to 12, 30 posts just to get to the same percentages that we'd like to carry. So once again, this is not something that, so you focus on product market fit because that's really what it's about. But if you did everything right on that and still kind of miss the funding, your outcome can change so much, because then you have to settle on which type of investors you choose. So funding strategy is probably the one thing that I would recommend looking into very strong.
And it's very complicated. Thank you, Yanai. That was very interesting conversation. Thank you for participating, and hopefully we'll have a chance to do some stuff together.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Folks, we're going to switch to the mentoring portion of the call today. I want to set some expectations for you. This is a working session, and it's a safe working session. So you can feel completely comfortable discussing whatever it is that you're struggling with, whatever it is that you're confused about, and we'll do our best to give you pointers to how to, address those issues and accelerate your journey. Remember one thing though, you're very welcome to disagree with my feedback today. It is your venture. You will make the decision on how you're going to proceed with that venture. But one thing is true is that not all businesses can raise money, and not all businesses should raise money. Raising money does not guarantee success. So sometimes, given all these things that you heard today from Yanai, and maybe you're following some of our other sessions as well, oftentimes, if you can get to product market fit, and if your TAM is not so large, it may be a better strategy to not raise financing and go straight to an exit, perhaps. And those options also remain. So think about, this whole startup game is a very, very complex game. So you're going to have to maneuver and navigate through it. We will do our best to help you think it through. So let's get started. Mark Jennings from London is our first presenter. Mark, please unmute your line and tell us what you're working on.
Hey guys, hi from London. How's everyone doing?
Go ahead. Tell us what you're doing, Mark. Welcome.
So we have launched a platform called subculture.com, and our primary focus, in fact our only focus, is on fan-generated reviews for music and festivals. If you can go to the next slide, that'd be great. So our aim is to be the primary platform for live event discovery globally. And what that means is that at the moment we see a big opportunity with regards to music fans and festival attendees trying to find information about festivals which might be relevant to them, but from other festival fans rather than getting it from mainstream media or journalists. And with that in mind, we created a platform which allows fans to go on and write reviews, just as you would on Tripadvisor. And we also work with the artists, the labels, the festivals and venues directly to actively engage their audiences and try and increase the amount of coverage they provide these people to really generate much, much more interest in their events. And we're now just about to go into look at selling tickets and merchandise across the platform, because user-generated platforms tend to have much higher levels of engagement for buying.
Mark, are you talking about reviews and ratings for just live music performances, or are you also talking about reviewing, bands and musicians that have recorded music and reviews of those recorded music pieces as well?
Absolutely everything. It could be the newest album or the latest tour or a festival. Absolutely everything.
Okay.
And the next two slides, so this one and the following slide is summing up the market opportunity. And in 2015, around about 200 million people bought tickets to live music events in the UK and US. And we see that as a big, big, big opportunity. And what's really important is that those figures are growing, 9% in the US year on year and 12% in the UK. So what's important is a big opportunity, but it's also growing, which we're really happy about. Go to the next slide, that'd be great. And the next one. What's become really apparent though, what we saw changing was the ability to comment and post reviews on these live music experiences. So at the moment, obviously we have social media, so Twitter and Facebook play an important role in generating feedback or direct and immediate feedback on events. What's really interesting is that there's a massive gap between a 10-word review of this festival was really awesome to a much more sort of in-depth dive into the experience in front of the main stage, what band was just discovered, how you had a great time with your friends. And there isn't anywhere which allows you to do that to that extent. So we're seeing a big decline in publishing, publisher houses like Pitchfork, The NME in the UK, a number of different magazine and webzines which are losing traction with their audience because they're not publishing relevant reviews. And we've seen a massive increase in user-generated content. So Tripadvisor last year celebrated its 300 millionth review, and revenues are around about just over $1 billion. And we've got advertisers who are now turning to user-generated content platforms to engage with target customers as well. Next slide would be great, sorry. So yeah, we thought the solution for the music and festivals marketplace would be just that, to use a Tripadvisor style platform and enable all fans to be able to engage with the artists they love. So right at this moment in time,
are you at? Is this already going, or is this something in the planning stage? What is the situation?
So right now we have a platform which is functional in the fact that anyone in the world can go on and write a review about any music experience. The only difference right now is that we don't have the ability to purchase tickets directly, but we're just working on that at the moment.
And how many users are on the platform?
So we have about 700 active reviewers who will publish around about 1 to 10 reviews a month. We do around about 6,000 reviews a year, and we have around about 60,000 unique users a month. So we're quite small.
And how are you financing this?
Savings, personal.
And so you're not monetizing at all right now?
We have a very tiny amount of ad revenue that comes in from the likes of AdSense, but we have worked with brand advertisers in the past, and we've generated about $40,000 of advertising from the likes of Sonos, the global speaker brand.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So somehow or the other, you're going to have to find ways of monetizing quickly so that you can cover costs for a while until you get to some degree of traction that will bring you to a fundable state. That's my, primary observation about B2C businesses require that you show some degree of scalability before investors are willing to put in money. And I think,
yeah, so,
go ahead.
I was going to say, so yeah, we totally agree. We're at the moment we're raising our seed capital, and we're doing this on a US platform called Net Capital. And the idea is to generate a combination of savvy sort of angel investors along with crowd investors as well. So right at this moment in time, anyone can log on to Net Capital, go to Submedia, our page, and they can invest as little as $100 into the fund. Yeah. And that will allow us then to scale, develop the second part of the platform, which will be a fully responsive platform, and then obviously concentrate on driving revenue, which I think is the key for us through scalability.
And are you getting good traction with your crowdfunding campaign?
It's an interesting one, actually, because we are, I've said it, we're based in London, but we are now a US incorporation. And the crowdfunding model in the US we're finding is still relatively new. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to jumpstart the campaign with professional investor money, which will then encourage, obviously, the crowd to then get behind it as well.
But that's my point. I think getting professional investor money at this stage of your evolution is going to be difficult.
It is hard. I mean, I think it's hard for everyone, but we are finding it very hard, yeah.
Yeah. This is why I think you need to figure out ways of raising revenues, getting revenues, whether it's, large brand sponsors or starting to generate from ticket sales, whatever it is, but you need to start generating revenues quickly so that you can keep yourselves afloat and keep building the platform while you are not funded externally, because I think you will see that it's going to be really difficult to raise professional investor money at this stage with the kind of metrics that you have.
Yeah, I mean, we've gone through this process and asked those questions a number of times, and I tend to agree with you. I think it's a very, very chicken and egg situation. We obviously need the funding to be able to scale and to be able to develop the platform into its fully functional state. At the same time, without that funding, it becomes very difficult to complete all those tasks. So I think, going back to what you were saying before with Yanai, there are many companies who find what we're doing interesting, but it's always a case of no one wants to be the first person. And I think until we have that scalability and that traction, like you said, it's still a very tough game.
B2C businesses these days don't get funded without some traction, evidence traction. So
yeah, so that kind of, I was going to say that goes back to our revenue forecasts, and these revenues take into account obviously the scalability of the platform and a number of different revenue sources post-seed capital. So we hope to, and if you go through to the next slide, as we go from doing the advertising and ticketing in the first year, then we move on to more complex solutions for B2B.
These numbers are going to be impossible to achieve given where you are right now. You know, you have to get to certain user levels, you know, without financing. So if these numbers are assuming big amounts of financing, you should create a whole different roadmap, assuming that financing comes in much later in the game once you've shown traction. Without that, it'll be hard to attract financing.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I mean, we have two different documents that we send out to investors at the moment. We have the investor deck, which is obviously on display now, and we have an opportunity note which details the sort of the roadmap and the user growth as well. I think at the moment we see the user growth going hand in hand with obviously revenue streams along with financing, but like you said, it needs to explain everything a little bit more clearly.
Yeah, because these numbers are too aggressive to be able to deliver given your current situation and given the fact that it's going to take you much longer to get to fundability and then funding. So I think these numbers are completely off, I would say.
Just to go back to that briefly, there's two different schools of thoughts we've come across when talking to, I guess, different complexities or different levels of investors, whether it be angels, micro VCs or VCs. We haven't met any angel VC or micro VC yet who doesn't highlight the need for being aggressive. We were actually told when we first delivered numbers to a few investors that we're being far too conservative. Many of the responses we've had is that
it is not a question of aggressive or conservative. It's a question of, you know, pure pragmatism. Without financing, you will be able to grow only at a certain pace. We haven't, you know, I don't really have time at the moment. I'm happy to work with you if you decide that you want to work with the program. I'm happy to work with all the details of customer acquisition, scalability, and everything with you. But for the moment, I'm assuming that there is a, you know, user acquisition strategy, review acquisition strategy that you've put in place, and those have costs associated with them, and those costs drive how fast you can grow that. So now if you have to grow that without external financing, there's no point just putting aggressive numbers on spreadsheets. You can't achieve them because you don't have the funds to achieve them with. That is the, as you said, it is the chicken and egg that you're going to have to live with, and you have to figure out how to work around that.
Okay. Okay.
So in principle, what you are proposing, a Tripadvisor of music, both live and recorded music, it's a very interesting idea. I like it very much. The question is, how do you scale something like that to a point where you show enough traction such that investors may be interested in something like this?
And that's a great question. Right now, we do that via working with a number of different organizations within the industry, whether it be record labels, festivals themselves, or indeed the artists. And as you would do if you came out from a vacation or a stay at a hotel, most hotels now prompt you or encourage you to write reviews on your stay. We ask that when artists release new music or play gigs, they do the same. And most of them, because of obviously they're looking for as much feedback from the fans as possible, do oblige. So that's kind of how we're working it right now. And until, like you said, the funding comes through, or pre-funding or a little bit of seed, we'll be using that strategy for a while. So it seems to be working quite well.
The other thing that you could do is, you said you have already had some experience working with Sonos. You could go to Sonos and ask them to give you a bit of seed funding. That is a conversation that is worth having.
Yes, we haven't gone down that route just yet. We were looking into that, but they're again they're a relatively young company. But yeah, that's
Sonos is not that
route.
young company. Sonos has been around for a long time, and they're they're not a very young company.
Okay.
All right. Well, it's interesting what you're doing. I hope you find the pieces. Hope you can bring together the pieces that you need to keep moving it forward. Because in the early stages of any business, and I'm not just talking to Mark here. I'm talking to all of you in the room. It is always a chicken and egg problem. So how we navigate the chicken and egg is what determines whether we succeed in building a successful venture or not. And that's just the reality of the business.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to help us out today, and it's been great presenting, so thank you very much indeed.
You're very welcome. Okay, we're going to move to Harish Patel from Ahmedabad, India. Harish, please unmute your line and tell us what you're working on.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Hello, good evening. This is Ghanshyam Patel, a cousin of Dr. Harish Patel. This is a company with India factor bill.
Harish, we cannot understand anything you're saying. So what is going on in your setup? Could you adjust your setup?
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry,
Okay, so try to go ahead and pitch what you have to pitch, and we'll see if we can understand. If not, we're going to move on. You should have called in for setup, and Maureen would have walked you through the setup process. Go on.
hello.
So what is Doctor Care?
Hello, yeah. Hello.
Harish, please go ahead and present. We can't just go hello for 5 minutes.
We
can't understand anything you're saying. I'm sorry, Harish, we're going to have to move on. You didn't participate in setup, and as a result, we are unable to hear you. We don't understand anything that you're saying. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to move on to the next presenter. Maureen, who is the next presenter? The next presenter is Gregory. Gregory Weston from Santa Clara, California. Gregory, go ahead. I believe you're on the call.
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
All right. So, yeah, I'm founder and CEO of Incognito Research, and we train Uber drivers to collect qualitative and quantitative data on behalf of market research firms to gain in-the-moment insights. We're doing this by combining the use of tablets, rideshare, and crowdsourcing to efficiently engage respondents at various points along their customer journey to gain those critical in-the-moment insights. Next slide. I'm the operational side of my company with over 3,000 rides completed as a driver and also two years of market research experience. My CTO is B.V. Satyaram, who has over 12 years of coding experience and also founded one of India's first coding boot camps. My interim director of research is Yudhi Rahadian, who has her own consultancy firm down in Los Angeles and has over 15 years of market research experience herself. And my advisory board is Gen 2 Advisors, which is one of the most reputable consultancy firms in the market research industry, and also has two of the top industry players with chief editor of Green Book, Leonard Murphy, and industry change maker Greg Archibald, with over 100 collective years of market research experience. Next slide.
So, Gregory, before we move on to the next slide, you have a bunch of interims in front of people's titles. What does that mean?
Mm-hmm. So the way that I'm structuring it right now is, so I'm trying to do my own unique approach when it comes to saving equity. So by having my interim CTO and director of research, I'm able to give them less than 5% equity in my company, and they help me. Then they're helping me develop out everything that I'm building. And
but are they going to join as full-time CTO and director of research after you raise funding, or is that not the plan?
No. So the plan is so whenever. Sorry, I just lost track where I was going. So I'm saving equity by giving them less than 5% equity, and they're helping me build out the product initially, and then whenever I obtain funding, I'm going to be able to hire on my CTO and director of research instead of giving them more than 5% equity in my company, so I can save that.
But are these the people? Is B.V. Satyaram and Yudhi Rahadian, are these the people that you will be bringing on as your CTO and director of research?
Odds are no. The only one that might transition into a full-time is my director of research, Yudhi Rahadian.
I see. So this is going to be a problem because you know, seed investors are not going to give you a check just like that without a team, especially since you don't have a technical background yourself.
Yeah. So by having B.V. Satyaram as my interim CTO. He's going to eventually
CTO, if he's not the one who's coming on board as the full-time CTO, you will not be able to sell that as a solution to that problem to investors.
Okay. All right. So next slide. So are we on the problem slide now?
Yes, we are.
All right, so we all know that traditional market research is tried and proven, but we're also quickly learning that it cannot efficiently keep up with and properly engage the modern consumer. By the time all the research is conducted and collected, the marketplace has shifted and the findings are irrelevant, creating a need for in-the-moment insights. Next slide. So the solution is, so mobile research projects are completed within days or even just hours. Using the scalable combination of tablets, rideshare, and crowdsourcing, we're able to find advantages over online and traditional approaches, such as considerable cost and time savings and more diverse, engaged responding groups. Next slide. The Incognito Research platform is the most convenient market research platform in the market research industry due to engaging respondents in between their busy times. Think about it. What do you personally do in a rideshare? You're either talking with the driver already for free, or you're playing on your phone just to pass the time. Sorry,
that statement is not correct, right? A lot of people during business hours are, you know, answering emails or having even phone conversations while going through a ride-sharing experience. So it's not like people are just sitting there and doing nothing. It depends on what else they need to do.
Yeah, it's their in-between busy time. So, you know, they're taking care of their tasks and everything, and most of the time people are just, it's their free time. They're doing nothing. Because I know this because I have my 3,000 rides completed as a driver as well, so I have that operational know-how. So, next slide.
We're on your business model slide right now.
Sounds great. So how we make money is pretty simple. Company X hires us to go gather data, and then we take that payment and divide that up between our data gatherers, which are rideshare drivers, and our respondents, who are rideshare passengers, and keep the rest for our business to keep on growing. Next slide. We've had considerable...
I don't necessarily understand the slide. So what is this qualitative project, quantitative project? What are you talking about here?
So that's just the pricing. That's just the pricing for each of our products. So for the quantitative surveys, that's just how much it costs, and it shows you, like, you know, the basic structure of like how much we charge and how we divide that up between passengers and drivers.
And what is the assumption of the usage model? The driver has a tablet in which the survey is presented, and the driver gives the tablet to the rider and to the passenger, and the passenger fills out the survey and gives it back? Is that what the usage model is?
Yeah, so whenever I launch, you're going to be able to hop in the back of an Uber ride, and then whenever you hop in, you're going to see a tablet that's securely hanging up on the back seat. So through this tablet is how you participate in my platform's research. Self-reporting your demographics to see which projects you qualify for, so you can earn an immediate incentive by either participating in one of our future generation inspired quantitative survey, or in micro in-depth interview with your driver, which is that natural conversation that you have, just with a little bit of structure to it.
And what's in it for the passenger?
So passengers benefit because we are incentivizing them to participate in our research, thus earning a discounted ride. And then drivers benefit because we are paying them to collect all of this data. So the typical incentive for a passenger on our quantitative surveys ranges between $1.50 all the way up to $3.50. And so that's typically
to provide a discounted ride, you're going to need to integrate with Uber, right?
Yep. So there's two paths that I'm going to go down eventually. So the first path that I would like to eventually implement is, form a strategic partnership with Uber or Lyft or whichever rideshare platform, so I can use their payment systems for both my drivers and passengers. Drivers, so we can just send it straight into their bank account easily, and passengers, so we can immediately apply that incentive to that particular ride that passenger is taking. That's the first route, and which will probably be implemented later on. And the current route that I'm going to be implementing, which is the more easier route because we're just getting going, is that we're going to, in order to participate in my platform's research, you have to enter in your email address before you get going. But whenever we obtain the passenger's email address, we take that email and link it with their PayPal account, and then we can send their incentives into their PayPal bank account.
All right. So there is the thing to keep in mind is that Uber and Lyft may not do this kind of an integration with you. So you need a path forward that is not dependent on Uber and Lyft agreeing to do such an integration. So as long as there is another way to move forward with compensating both your driver and your passenger, that's good.
Absolutely. Yep. And we eventually, one of the great things about my platform is that we don't need, we certainly love Uber and Lyft's blessing, but we certainly don't need it because we're working directly with their contracted 1099 workers.
You're working with the directly 1099 workers, but you're not. They're not on your 1099. So you're going to have to issue other 1099s for them, for the workers, for the drivers, because you're not on Uber 1099.
Yep. So they are contracted workers, so we would have to implement our own 1099 worker contract.
Okay. So let's go to your questions. What are your questions?
May I finish my pitch, or am I going over the limit time-wise?
We have two. Well, you can take a little bit longer, but we need to finish soon. I would rather go to your.
I'll just speed through it really quick then. So yeah, we've had considerable traction with last year. We've had our 2017 Next Gen Market Research Disruptive Innovator Award. We have our formal relationship with Gen 2 Advisors. 4 signed letters of intent, and also in the process of obtaining several more. And we've also, through our market research efforts, we've found out that we have a 86.6 positive acceptance, of our services from rideshare passengers and drivers.
How many surveys have you done in this mode?
250.
250. And
yeah,
what has been?
Good.
What has been the commercials of that? Is it 250 surveys for one client, 250 surveys across 4 clients? How many? What is the detail of that?
So I did my surveying through a combination of personal in-depth interviews and surveys, with my rideshare passengers, and also through SurveyMonkey. So it was a combination of both street surveying or intercept surveying and online methods.
But my question really is, has a client paid you to do these surveys?
Not yet. So that's kind of a hurdle for me right now, is because I have several, like I said, I have several letters of intent that are signed, and I'm obtaining several more. But the problem is that everybody in the market research industry is interested in my product and wants to use it, but nobody wants to be the first because the data is unproven. So
you're going to have to break that cycle, otherwise nobody is going to invest in your company.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking to that point, I actually had a really productive conversation with the vice president of field services, of client development at one of the research firms that I'm talking with, and he said that he was very interested in using my platform for some internal projects that they have coming up. So I do have like that strong indication that I'm going to have a paying customer very soon, actually, which is really exciting.
Good. Think about also the segmentation of what kind of customers particularly would benefit from working on a situation like what you're proposing, like people who are riding Uber in a certain geography. Think through what types of surveys, what demographic are we talking about, what is that demographic good for, and then go solicit customers who are looking to reach that demographic.
Absolutely, yep, and that's exactly what I've been doing as well, because it's really fun, because it's a very broad and ambitious statement, but I think it's fairly accurate to say that my Incognito Research platform is the market research industry's next internet, because the internet afforded the market research industry an instantaneous connection with their target respondents around the world. And my platform is doing exactly that, but we're doing it in person, because we're able, all sorts of demographics use rideshare, predominantly being millennials, being the primary user of rideshare, but we're able to get very highly targeted with our respondent base because of our strategic positioning and also other targeting strategies as well. So it's we're able to offer a very wide and diverse respondent group to our potential clients, and also
All right, we're gonna need to move on, Gregory, to the next presenter. Okay. So if you want to ask a question, you're welcome to. Otherwise, hang on and listen to the rest of the presentation and engage in the Q&A afterwards.
I'm all set for now. Thank you so much for letting me pitch.
You're very welcome. Yudhi Rahadian from Germany. Please unmute your line, Yudhi, and tell us what you're working on.
Hi, Srimana. I'm Yudhi. Thank you for having me in this presentation.
You're very welcome.
So Ontel AB is a new company founded in August 2017, last year. So we are like a team of 9. We have like myself is the co-founder of the Ontel AB, and we are developing the smart lock for the bike sharing system, because what I'm showing you here is the current situation in Sweden. So what we have now is actually the limited hours and the limited location, and also perhaps you already know that we have like the bikes that you can put everywhere, bike sharing, but what we can see now is like a graveyard of bikes, because it's not so nice for the city itself. Next slide, please. So what we are making is like retune it wherever bike public parking exists. So we are working with the local city in Stockholm, So we have integrated our database to their database, and also we use use it as long as you want. And we are using the smart lock for the bike, so it means that we are not only renting the bikes of our own, but somebody who has the bikes, like perhaps you have extra bikes at home and you would like to rent it for the tourists or so on, so you can use our smart lock. Yeah, next slide, please. So what we are using now is the latest technology. As myself, I'm working as a telecom consultant, so I'm quite familiar with the technology. It's using 4G NB-IoT. It's also the roadmap to the 5G. So what this NB-IoT using is because we also can put the sensor data on our bike sharing system. And what we can collect is like a pollution data and also the pothole detection. So this pothole detection means that if you find if the bikes detect any pothole in the road, it will send data directly to the cloud, and then it will also benefit for the local city for the safety of the bikers and also the other road user. And what we are doing also now to make easily for the tourists, we try to integrate it with the other local public transportation, which is ongoing because we're trying to approach them now with the in the Stockholm. And we are also using any bike can be used for bike sharing as like as Uber, and but it's more to bike. It's not like Uber that you have your own car and then so on. But we are using bikes. It's mostly for the tourists. So how it works is like you can download the app and then register your smart lock ID, and then you can use it's connected to the credit card or the PayPal. And then we also try to develop the 5G bike, which can detect other road users. So we are trying now to more advance with the technology. So what we are targeting is like people now can make a smart car and smart motorcycle, but there is no smart bike because myself I'm located in Europe. Mostly that people I like to ride a bike itself than to ride a car. And next slide, please. Okay. So yeah, I mean, I guess that's all. So so perhaps our traction is like last month we are just selected as a finalist of IoT World Cup in Mobile World Congress in Barcelona, even though that we just managed to secure second place because our device itself is not ready to be released to the market because we're still ongoing, and we also for the funding itself, we are trying to use the resource pool. So each of us, we have like 9 people. We try to use the profit sharing pool, and we're trying to utilize that.
I have a question. You said you're working with the city of Stockholm. Is that some sort of a contract? Are they paying you? What is the city of Stockholm's skin in this game?
Yeah, actually, they want to replace their existing bike sharing because it's still using the old school bike sharing with the docking, which invest too much money. Like for example, one docking itself it costs 5,000 euro, and then the bike itself costs 1,000 euro. So when we come with the solution, they interested, then they would like to start with 500 bikes with like 100,000 euro funding. But because in Stockholm the summer is only between June and August, I mean, and so we have to wait until they are ready to be released. So our target is we will have the official launching on June. Yeah.
In Stockholm. So in the meantime, are you going to try to work with other cities that have longer summers, like maybe in Spain or Italy, where they have bike sharing?
Yes, we do, because now we are trying to approach because it's more related to the operator cellular. So now we are trying to approach the like a Vodafone and like a T-Mobile, because we are using their own cellular network, and we are trying to become like their partner.
I think that's too indirect a strategy. You need to go directly to cities who run bike sharing programs. You should do a research on cities who have longer summers and who run bike sharing programs, and approach them to find out who runs their bike sharing programs and approach them directly. You should make a list of 100 cities that fit that profile and go approach them directly.
Okay, so you think that we just need to send them like an email, or we just try to find some connection to them? Because
ideally, I don't know if these people are on LinkedIn or not. You can look in LinkedIn and see if you can find them on LinkedIn and contact them and start dialogues with them. You need to start. You're going to need to start, talking to them basically somehow. Figure out how, whether it's email or phone or whatever. But you need to start talking to them. And that really is your validation strategy. Whether cities are willing to adapt to your technology, your workflow, that is really what is going to determine whether you have product market fit or not.
Yeah, I agree with you, but the thing is we are not ready with our products yet. The readiness to market will be released in
That doesn't
June.
matter. If your product is ready in June, we are already in March, you need to go talk to these people and tell them that, hey, our product will be ready in June. This is the concept. This is what we want to do. Are you interested? How can we work together? So you can, instead of launching in June with one city, you need to launch in June with more cities.
Okay, that's a good option. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Yeah.
Okay. So, folks, if you like what we are doing here, please bring serious entrepreneurs into 1 million by 1 million. And the word serious is in bold, you see, because it takes a lot of work and many years to build serious companies. In terms of 1 million by 1 million resources, everything is on the website, 1Mby1M.com. You'll find a blog that is chock full of information, learning material, inspirational material, educational material. You can go just study the blog for free on a regular basis and you will learn a lot. The Entrepreneur Journeys book series, we have published 12 volumes of these, and you can learn different topics within entrepreneurship. These are case study-based books, 12 to 16 case studies in each category. So whether you're talking about cloud computing, or you're talking about billion-dollar unicorns, or you're talking about e-commerce businesses, female entrepreneurs, bootstrapping with a paycheck, bootstrapping using services, you can learn about each of these topics from the Entrepreneur Journeys book series. Go look in Amazon. Everything is available on Kindle. These roundtables happen every week. This is the 390th roundtable, and we are, marching steadily towards our 400th roundtable. So there's a lot of opportunity to work on your businesses through these roundtables wherever you are. As you saw today, we have companies from all different parts of the world coming here and presenting, and you'll have wherever you are, you have access. So use it. We have the full premium program, which is our full acceleration program with full methodology guidance, an online curriculum that you can access from anywhere. So those of you who have never done this before, you can get kind of a very rapid, very efficient, very cost-effective entrepreneurship MBA of sorts by using the 1 million by 1 million curriculum. We do help you with business development, potential customers, channel partners. We have roundtables like this for members only, as part of the premium program that you can participate as many times as you want to. You can pitch, come discuss your business as much as you want to. And we also help you with financing and media relations. Now, on the financing side, you have to be fundable before we can introduce you to investors, but we do have a very, very active and engaged set of investors as part of our ecosystem. Maureen, could you please share the seed capital link from the blog in the public chat? And this link that Maureen will just share with you in a moment, you can go there and get familiar with how investors think. You'll get to know our community of investors, but you also get to know how they think. There are podcasts, interviews, roundups, etc. in there, many ways in which we are giving you an opportunity to learn how investors think. And what you heard earlier in the program today was exactly that. You're getting into the minds of an investor, an active investor in the ecosystem, and some part of the world who's sharing with you how they think and how they look at investment opportunities. And it's important because, as you can see, investment is complicated. Each investor has their own sweet spot, own investment thesis, so you have to have something that fits their investment thesis to be able to interest them. So that's that, and then I also suggest you go to the 1Mby1M self-assessment on the website and ask yourselves these questions about your business. It's a questionnaire that is a strategic planning questionnaire. I personally use this as my strategic planning device for companies, and it's something that you should learn how to use. And if you get stuck on methodology, use the 1Mby1M basic curriculum only option to tackle your strategy methodology gaps. So if you get stuck in terminology, for instance, you know, how do you do bottom-up TAM analysis? You're going to need to do bottom-up TAM analysis. Everybody will need to do bottom-up TAM analysis. If you get stuck on understanding how to do that, go to the curriculum, learn that, and get that moving. If you get stuck with positioning, learn that, get that moving. So we have, you know, originally we launched just with the premium program. We introduced 1Mby1M basic later, precisely because a lot of our community wanted to be able to, you know, do methodology training on their own, and that's why we gave you the curriculum only option as well. So you can do either premium or basic, or you can start with basic and move on to premium, up to you. Go to the website, there's tons of material on what to expect from premium, what to expect from basic, FAQs, video FAQs. There's a comprehensive amount of material, full curriculum description. The curriculum is done in case studies. We have over 800 successful entrepreneurs who have participated in the curriculum development and in the case study program. They have shared how they've put one foot before the other in building their businesses, and we have brought all of that and stitched together a very powerful curriculum that you get to basically use. And this includes 50+ unicorn entrepreneurs, 400+ venture-funded companies, 350+ bootstrap success stories, and you get to learn from people who have done it before. That is, you know, our scalable mentoring platform, so to speak. Our methodology is lean, capital-efficient bootstrap startups, and the philosophy is bootstrap first, raise money later, because most of the industry operates like that. Especially if you're a first-time entrepreneur, there is not much chance that you will be able to raise money without putting some, you know, significant amount of bootstrapping time and milestone achievements before investors are going to be willing to work with you. So that's that, and the next few roundtables are on your screen, March 22nd and March 29th, and then April 5th, 12th, 18th, and 26th. So the next 6 roundtables are on the screen. You can sign up to pitch or attend to any of these. We also have these in-person rendezvous in Silicon Valley. So tonight there is one at 5 p.m., and then there's 2 more in March, 21st and 28th. At Cafe Boroni in Menlo Park. You're welcome to come to any of these. And then we have, you know, all these different touch points that we offer you. You're welcome to use any of them, all of them, multiple of them, and work in whatever way is convenient for you. All these resources are resources that subsets of our community are using to get help on their entrepreneurial journey. So we are more or less ready for call-in questions, Q&A. You can also use the public chat for Q&A at this point. I will pick up your questions from public chat in just a moment. So please start putting in your questions, and if you're dialing in, let us know. Meanwhile, let me also introduce you to Irina Patterson. If you have questions about the 1M1M program, just feel free to call this call on this number or the email address, irina@1Mby1M.com, and she'll be happy to help you. That's pretty much it. So now we are ready. We are going back to questions. And I see one question, Radhika Tekumala is asking, quick question, do the same rules about user traction and revenue apply for consumer apps as well, which also serves as a B2C app? I don't understand the question. The conversation I was having earlier about the music business with Mark, that is a B2C business, and that definitely requires traction. So B2B has different metrics. B2B means that you're going to need to get customers to engage and validate your proposition, and accordingly, that will be treated as validation. So they operate differently. B2B and B2C operate somewhat differently, if that's the question you're asking. Okay, folks, any other questions, comments? By the way, feel free to introduce yourselves. We love to get to know you and hear from you. Where are you joining from? What are you working on? What brings you here? What are your aspirations? So feel free to introduce yourselves in public chat as well. It is a networking opportunity here now. All right, well, if I don't see any questions, then I'm going to move on and close up the session for today. And hopefully I'll see some of you tonight at the rendezvous. Otherwise, we'll see you next week at the next roundtable. Thank you for coming, everybody. Bye-bye.